You're good.
I call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Waukee, Ottawa, and Mississaugas people. Just before I go any further, I'd just like to go a little out of bounds here. We had quite just a procedural bylaws. I've been kind of mulling over them. We've got to the situation where I just want to review a few of them and just point a few of them out to you again, and they're available for everybody. First of all, in section 4.1, that the bylaw shall be observed in all proceedings of council. This is very important that we follow them. I do tend to let things go on. I'm going to take responsibility for 90% of our difficulties because I do love to chat and I do love to hear back what everybody's thinking. Section 5.3 also is it's a unanimous consent of council to go past 10 o'clock. So if anybody is feeling because they're not healthy or well, that past 10 o'clock, if you don't agree to do it, we can do the rest of the meeting another day. I want to point that out. Our role in council is to develop and evaluate the policies and programs of the township to determine which services of the township are going to provide. That's our main job. Section 8.2 is, 8.3 is that, members of council shall make technical inquiries to staff regarding material supplies in advance of the meeting. That is actually right in our bylaws. And I think it helps the staff if we ask the questions ahead of time. It probably wouldn't need to be asked in the council, or when it's asked in the council, then they would have they'd be ready for an answer to let all of us councillors know what's going on. Section 8.3, that's the technical one. 8.4 is our request for submissions. Report shall be by council motion. So if we want council to do something for us, we can have conversations with the staff, but we do have to ask it in council as a request in council. Quite often at county, what I'll see, and it may happen today in this council, a report will be giving and we'll accept the report for information purposes, but we would like the staff to bring further information forward or something like that. We do that quite a bit at the county level. So we do not have to, if we're given 3 options, please understand that those are the 3 options based on what our staff have looked into, what we have requested of our staff. And there's been a couple of times when I've reviewed it and I've realized, and I will take blame for this, that we haven't asked the proper question. And so staff has done what we've asked them to do. Just a couple other ones here. Section 23.4 is when a vote is called after the motion is finally put, no member shall speak to the motion, nor shall any other motion be made until after the vote is taken by the resolution declared. Yes or no is the answer. Just yes or no. Okay. Members shall not speak to the same motion without consent of the head of council. So the way it's supposed to work is, in all honesty, everyone is to ask a question or questions, and it will be answered by staff or other councillors or myself. Then all other councillors get an opportunity to ask a question. Then it can come back to the person that asked the original question, so that we don't get ourselves in a situation where 2 councillors seem to be asking each other a lot of questions, and all questions, of course, are directed to myself, which you guys do a very, very good job of. And again, I will take the responsibility for allowing things to go on too long. I should be paying a little more attention to the actual job I'm supposed to do instead of the conversation I'm involved in. So I just wanted to point those few things out and hope that helps us all. And anybody, again, can get the procedural bylaws. This was just a comments for myself and staff and council, so we all recognize how the procedure is supposed to take place. And I think by what I just said, you can see that I do let them stray quite a bit. But we need to keep in mind that I know some of our staff members were here at 8:30 this morning because I was sitting there with them, and they will be there till we leave tonight. And then they're going to drive an hour home. So we'll try to keep that in mind. But at the same time, you councillors have a job to do, and you will do that job because that's what the population hired you to do. Thank you very kindly. Okay, confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the agenda for February 22nd, 2022 council meeting as presented. Do I have movers? I have Rick McBurney first. I have Chris Palmer second. Parson Lamb, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Deputy Reeve Sype is currently absent, so Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, very kind. Disclosure of pecuniary interest on tonight's meeting. Are there anyone out there wanted to? Not seeing any, we shall move right along. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak at an item of business that is on this agenda. And you have 2 minutes per person. If you have 5 friends that are going to say the same thing, remember, we're going to be here all night, even though you get to leave in 5 minutes. So please, you don't need to repeat yourself. Is there anybody in public that would like to speak? I am not hearing any unless you see any, Carson.
Nope, not seeing anyone, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent agenda 5.1.1 to 5.1.2. And further, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.2 for information. Before I ask for a motion, is there anyone that would like to speak to anything? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I guess this will be, I'll need an answer from you, if you don't mind. This is 5.3.1, that letter from Central Huron. I was a little concerned, I guess. I know you and Mayor Ginn conversed. I don't know what you talked, well, I know what you talked about, but I don't know how far it went. But out of the letter, it came that both were sharing facilities. So basically, no, they didn't have to pay us anything. But the answer really is that it's not fair. Blythe people do not go to Clinton, but a whole lot of Central Huron people north of Lonsborough come to Blythe. And Mayor Ginn doesn't seem to want to face that. So anyways, that's my point, is that it is unfair. And how did your conversation go? Like, did you make any headway at all in his thinking?
Well, I actually was quite happy with that and many other conversations Warden Ginn and I have had. The reality is they have theirs to pay for and we can freely use it, and we have ours to pay and we can freely use theirs and they can freely use ours. It's a two-way street. We had the numbers before us of how much percentage they used. They're not going to go to the work of finding out percentages. There's no reason. The gist of the whole thing was, I believe it was a question by council concerning Morris Turnberry and how can we bring this cross-border and all these agreements that seem to be floating out there to an end. And I believe council decided that if we could try to rope everything off. So before we sent the request back to Morris Turnberry, we thought maybe they'd come back and say, you didn't ask anybody else, why should we pay? So we kind of rounded that off as a council. I believe that was the direction we were going in. So that was merely there for all other councilors, that all other townships that use our facilities. We showed them how much they use of it. So again, when we're trying to negotiate with different ones, they're not saying we're picking on you or we're not picking on somebody. So Chris, I hope that's an acceptable answer, but that's why that conversation took place.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing or hearing of anybody, then do I have a mover? I have Councillor Heffer moving, Councillor Van Hittersum seconding. Carson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer? Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sype?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer? And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Number 6, public meetings, hearings, and delegations. Karen Stewart and Brne Steffler on the Alice Munro Festival of Short Stories 2022 Festival Update. Are you girls out there ready to go?
Yes, we're here. Well, I'm
Okay.
here. Excuse me.
I hear Karen, but I don't see you, Karen.
Yes.
Oh, maybe.
I just came up with assistant preferences here, so I'm not, oh, here. Okay, I think I got it.
Karen, you pushed the wrong button if you're still on at the other end. We'll give her a second, folks.
Yeah, it looks like she just exited the meeting.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I just wonder if anyone else is having any trouble with this meeting here. I was kicked out earlier. I've seen that Councillor Cyprus had gone off and come back together. I have no video of anyone else on the meeting, so I don't know if anyone else is having any trouble with the meeting.
I have Corey, sorry, Corey. She's got her hand up, so she's having trouble too. Deputy Reeve Cypher, are you having trouble?
I didn't have any trouble getting in, but I don't have any video. That was the reason why I kicked off and kicked back on to see if it was an issue with just the connection. But
Yeah.
that was the reason why I kicked on.
Yeah, I have no video either.
And then Karen, are you back on yet?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that.
There she
Can I
is.
can I share my screen?
Carson.
Yes, you should have sharing permissions now.
Okay. Oh, now I got to go back to that same thing again. Let's go. Can we choose Cisco meeting? So
Carson, do you have a copy and you're able to put it up?
Yeah, I can share one of my screens here.
I appreciate that. Karen, we're going to get Carson to share and he'll flip as you tell him.
thank you. I'm
You're
sorry.
No, everything's good.
Yeah, Brne couldn't join us tonight. She doesn't have the computer, so here on my own, but try and represent as well. So,
You're up, Karen.
hey, great. I got something in the middle of my screen here, so I'm just going to trust that it goes. Carson, I'll just go next slide, please, when we're ready. So, oh, sorry, back up. Thank you. Good evening, Reeve Bailey, council members, staff, media, and guests. I'm here representing the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story with great hopes that pandemic protocols will permit us to host live events in the township again in June 2022. Next slide, please. First, I'll give you the highlights of last year's festival. The 2021 short story contest had 198 adult and 72 youth writers competing for cash prizes and recognition of their writing abilities. The celebrity judge was one of Canada's celebrated literary historians, novelist and screenwriter Emma Donoghue, while Heather Smith, an award-winning author of the young adult novels Ebb and Flow and The Agony of Bun O'Keefe, was the 2021 guest judge for the youth category of the short story contest. Prizes were awarded during a Facebook Live event on Saturday, June 7th to an audience of 98, and the winning stories are published online on our website at alicemunrofestival.com. Next slide, please. Like several other festivals and events planned for last spring and summer, the live events for the 2021 Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story had to be canceled. So our 2021 storytelling series was presented virtually and included Canadian authors David Adams Richard, Alex Olin, Camilla Gibb, Lindy Mashevsky, Mary Lawson, and MG Fasanjay. Readings and discussions, next slide, please. Readings and discussions drew online viewers averaging between 123 and 361 people for each session, and total attendance for the 6 readings was 2,558. Readings were shared live on local access channels, and recorded readings were shared on Facebook, garnering hundreds more views for each event. Master classes with Alex Olin and MG Fasanjay were limited to 15 participants each, and both sold out. Next slide, please. Authors of children's and youth books presented readings virtually on Friday, June 4th to classes in the Avon-Maitland District School Board. Kenneth Opal, Sydney Smith, Lisa Dalrymple, and Heather Smith each did 2 online readings, and we had over 1,500 students attend the sessions that day. The Festival for Kids was canceled entirely the previous year, so we were delighted to be able to bring it back in 2021 even though the children were studying from home. One author, Sydney Smith, was at his home in the Maritimes. He's an illustrator, so he created 3 pieces of art while he chatted about the stories. One student copied his techniques and created 3 pieces of art too. In another session, a student asked author of Skink on the Brink, Lisa Dalrymple, does a skink shed its skin? She answered that she didn't know, and in literally 5 seconds flat, without being encouraged, 2 students in grade 2 had searched it on the internet and had the answer. And yes, they do. Next slide, please. 2022 will be our 20th year hosting activities in North Huron. The 3-day Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story nurtures emerging writers and celebrates the short story in the landscape that inspired the work of Alice Munro, North Huron's very own Nobel Laureate for Literature. Next slide, please. The 2022 festival will be held June 3 to 5, and 1 day of live programming will take place in Wingham, while 1 day of virtual programming will be added. The short story contest opened on January 1st, and stories are due by March 15th. Alice Munro Festival for Kids is being planned again, and as there are still restrictions with guest artists in the classroom, we'll present the children's authors virtually again in 2022. Next, please. In 2022, we'll host 8 Canadian authors, 4 masterclasses led by Canadian authors, which is up to 1 panel of artists in discussion and lunch on Sunday, 5 children's authors, that's up by 1 author and 2 sessions, the Short Story Awards luncheon, short story readings, a locavore lunch, and a bookstore. Next, please. We have a wonderful committee of dedicated volunteers who generously give up their time and talent to raise funds and profile for and of the festival, coordinate event volunteers, host authors and special guests, and work behind the scenes to create a wonderful experience for those attending the festival. Our committee is fortunate to have leadership from Huron County's Tourism Development Officer, Rick Sickinger, and Jim Searle, Huron County Library's Programming and Community Engagement Coordinator, who both bring expertise and their passion for literature to the work of the committee, as does Councillor Heffer, who participates on the committee, and we're very thankful for their representation from North Huron. Next slide, please. Presenting the 2022 budget, our artist fees account for 48% of our annual expenses. And this year, the revenue is decreased by the Ontario Arts Council funding, which is a biannual program. And we've increased prizes in the adult category of the short story contest, and we've added the 1 lunch on Sunday. Next, please. Intellectual, emotional, and spiritual experiences are shared by readers and writers through storytelling. A reader can fear and can feel joy and be excited and know grief. They can laugh and cry, shiver and rage, and they can feel less alone or that they matter. And relating to Alice Munro, it can give us our place in the world. We have a community and characters that are as unique and interesting as anyone anywhere. We are asking the municipality of North Huron to continue its tradition and support the 2022 festival with a grant of $3,000. This funding will directly support visiting authors as well as the marketing of the 2022 events in North Huron. Next, please. Community support is vital for the festival, and we're very proud to acknowledge these generous donors. The County of Huron has designated this festival as one of its annual signature events. We hope you will too, and will continue to support this unique festival in North Huron. Next. And here's a sneak peek of the 2022 festival artwork by Native artist Kristen Dennis called Sacred Dream of Reality. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Karen. Councillor Heffer, would you like to speak to this? You're our representative on there. Yeah,
Through you, Reeve. No, I just thank Karen for the opening there. I just appreciate that, the work that she does with it, and I like seeing where it came up 30K on one side and 29K on the other side, and the revenue expenses. So it's really going well, and I know they're also planning. Karen didn't touch on that, but they're planning an event down at the festival down in Blythe, the outdoor festival. They're planning 3 shows down there that they're hoping it's going to be able to go forward. There's a couple things pending yet, but it's looking very positive, and they figure they'll be able to sell them out. So it's going to be a win. It's all about Huron County girls that have things have happened, and it'll be very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Hepper. Anyone else like to speak to Karen? Not seeing any. Karen, I want to thank you very kindly for coming out and giving us an update on what's going on.
Thank you
It's
so
always
much.
very exciting to know that our community is well, and very proud of our former community members.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, moving on. 6.2, Vicki Lass and Cole Nicholson, Huron County Economic Development Department, Huron County Business Retention and Expansion Project. Vicki.
Thank you very much, Reeve. It's my pleasure to present to Council tonight on the BRNE project, and I will just share my screen. And you can let me know if you can see that properly.
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Okay, so this evening it's my pleasure to present to Council to update you on the Huron County Business Retention and Expansion Project. A business retention and expansion project is a internationally accepted economic development tool. Huron County undertook this tool to use this tool and do a business retention and expansion in 2021. And that did prove to have a few complications, but many successes. So let me start by just walking you through the stages of a BRNE. So BRNE is administered across Ontario by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. It is a 4-stage process. The first stage is preparation, and Cole Nicholson, who's with us here tonight, led this project. He is employed on a red contract with the county to run the BRNE project. So in stage 1, Cole formed a project task force. And with that project task force, which included representation from businesses and all of our member municipalities, including the BIAs and chambers, he formed a project task force. That project task force took on designing a survey. Now there is a standardized survey so that we can compare surveys across the province, and OMAFRA does that comparison work, but there is the ability to customize a few questions so that we can ask important questions for our own county or area. Cole's group went on to recruit volunteers and train those volunteers. Normally, as we prepare, we're training volunteers to be able to deliver face-to-face surveys. So they go out in pairs and speak directly with business owners who have agreed to about an hour of time to talk to the volunteers. Because it was COVID, like everything else, Cole had to get creative and pivot, and his task force worked with him to adapt and deliver the surveys through mail because it wasn't appropriate for us to be face-to-face with our business community. So in stage 2, we conduct those interviews, and that was done through mailing out surveys, but doing follow-up calls. So in total, we mailed out 3,360 surveys. And at the time that this slide deck was prepared, we had a 21% response rate, meaning 723 surveys were completed across the county. And since the time of this slide deck, we have had more surveys returned. So we're now up to 741 responses and a 22% response rate. This response has completely thrilled us. OMAFRA has never seen anything like it. You are limited in the number of businesses you can get out to when you go face-to-face. So we're quite thrilled with the engagement of our business community and the fact that they took the time to respond to us. And I think it was only a couple of weeks ago that Cole received the last 18 surveys. So they're continuing to engage with us. During that time, When we do the surveys and we're interviewing in person, we will identify yellow and red flags, which means we can't wait until the end of the survey process or into the development of goals and actions in that third phase to respond. It means that our businesses have concerns that need to be addressed immediately. So during the survey stage, over 200 businesses requested immediate support. Not really a surprise during the pandemic, but really, again, so grateful that our business community is willing to engage with us and ask for that support. So those businesses were immediately directed to support within our department. Many of the requests were handled by our small business enterprise coaches and some of our economic development officers. We'll talk a little bit more about what the trends were in those requests. In total, we had 30+ volunteers, staff, and summer students involved in this effort to get such a great response. So as those surveys come back in, we analyze the survey results and we work to identify themes and create the data summary report that's in front of you tonight. So in your package, you would have received 2 data summary reports. And again, thanks to Cole, he created the county-wide data summary report, and then he created another 9 summary reports, 1 for each of our partner municipalities. Because of the success of the survey, we are able to have statistically significant data at that partner municipality level, and we will dig into that a little bit more as we go through the slide deck. So that is why you have 2 surveys in front of you. They will be similar, but we will talk about a few of those differences. So once we created that data summary report, and we did that in consultation with some of our partners, the planning department, the Economic Development Board, and Paul Nickel from Community Futures Huron, we were able to circulate and present those results as we are doing tonight. So to just go over the report at a high level and give you some of the feedback, the next 2 slides, I'll be drawing your attention to some of the elements of the report. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see the breakdown of those who replied to the survey. Now, again, this is in our 723 businesses. Due to timing, we couldn't include the last few respondents. But you will note that we have the highest response rate from agriculture. And then we go to retail. The other category included a number of different businesses, but our main respondents came from agriculture, retail, manufacturing, and construction. Highlights of the survey included Huron County is dominated by locally owned and operated businesses, with the vast majority of those businesses having been in operation for more than 11 years, and quite a number of those businesses being in business between 25 and 35 years. We had an interesting comment from Paul Nickel as we were looking at the data. He participated in a county-wide BRNE over a decade ago. And he said, then we had businesses in business for 25 years, and we looked at that to say, what a strong and stable economy we have. We still look at this fact over 11 years in business to illustrate that we do enjoy a strong and stable economy, even during a pandemic in Huron County. But now, a decade later, those businesses that were in business 25 years are in business 35 years. And we noticed a very strong theme of aging out or succession planning being required. The majority of our businesses surveyed have less than 20 employees, and quite frankly, the vast majority of our businesses are between 1 and 4 employees. So we're looking at a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. But when we think about those small businesses, and we think about the pandemic times that we have come through so far, imagine trying to run your business, continually pivot, and then keep track of all the supports that were out there for businesses, all the rules, all the regulations. So we did see an overwhelming number of businesses who thought that it would be wonderful to have some HR support. And I think we can understand that having all experienced the last couple of years. The majority of businesses report serving local and regional markets, although we do have a number of businesses that participate in export and a number of businesses that are interested in learning more about export. The report shows that Huron County has a very stable business community, as I mentioned earlier, but we do have that risk of starting to age out without necessarily having someone interested in taking over the business. So we are at risk of losing some valuable businesses and losing some support along our supply chains. Respondents have a neutral or positive outlook for their industry. So again, thinking about the timing of the survey, the fact that the majority of our businesses are still quite positive about their industry is reassuring. And again, I believe shows the strong business support and the strength of the business community in Huron County. Moving along, most businesses did not have a change in attitude towards doing business in Huron County, and I want to add that most businesses were quite positive when they thought about doing business in Huron County. There was a high level of satisfaction with community and local government services. Advantages of doing business in Huron County were noted as the sense of community and its desirable location. Now, when we talk about its desirable location, we're not necessarily talking about being located on a 400 series highway, which is a desirable location to many urban businesses. What businesses noted around the desirable location was the natural attractions of Huron County, the work-life balance, the ability to have so many trails and the environment, and also the support of residents and businesses. So that's ongoing support of residents and businesses contributes to the fact that our community, our business community, looks at Huron as a desirable location to do business, and it allows them to have some work-life balance even during a pandemic. Areas that were suggested for improvement included access to attainable housing, lowering taxes, addressing workforce shortages, increase in population, and access to the internet. Now, I would say that none of these would come as a surprise to you, but we were able to learn more about what this actually meant through the survey. The reason the top three are bolded and not the bottom two is that for the businesses who responded in North Huron, they were not concerned about an increase in population or access to internet. Their top three concerns were attainable housing, lowering taxes, and workforce shortages. Again, on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see the breakdown of the businesses who responded. There were a total of 68 businesses in North Huron who responded, which is a really great rate of response. To give you a comparison, pre-pandemic, when rural Oxford did their BRE, although their response rate was 100% because it was in person and they only counted the businesses that they interviewed 55 businesses. So the entire rural Oxford area's strategic economic development plan was based on 55 business responses. In North Huron alone, we had 68 businesses respond, with the #1 sector being retail, followed by ag, finance and insurance, construction and healthcare, and manufacturing. So as we look through and do our data analysis, we try to identify themes, and these themes are important because they're the areas of concentration as we move forward for the Economic Development Department. So what we saw were, as themes, we identified the top 4 themes as planning along the business life cycle, and this is where we look at the work of encouraging entrepreneurs and startups, and that's through our Small Business Enterprise Center with programs like Starter Company Plus, Summer Company, and Be Your Own Boss for youth, where we grow businesses And then most importantly, what we heard over and over again was assistance with that succession planning. So looking at how we can plan and work with our businesses along that life cycle. Second was workforce issues. Again, no surprise, but where we were able to dig deeper in the survey was to get more texture and understanding of workforce issues that directly affect our businesses. So when we can have that kind of conversation and understand better individual business needs, we can serve them right away. So already initially, we have been able to assist our business. One of the things we found in workforce was that a number of our businesses do not use interns, co-op students, or apprentices. So as we dug a little deeper into that, we found that the businesses really didn't know about some of the assists that were available to them. So early in the new year, the technical training group that does pre-apprentice and apprenticeship training reached out to us and said for their applications for funding from the province, they needed to have the support of businesses saying that they would take on apprentices. And they had a number of responses from their Perth County businesses, but they hadn't from Huron County. And the Perth County businesses were more than happy to take any Huron County trainees. But we wanted to make sure that our businesses were able to take on the apprentices who graduated from the programs being offered through the technical training group, and we wanted to help support their application. So we were able to dig into our list of businesses that did use apprentices. We were able to narrow that list to the 2 apprenticeships that TTG was concentrating on at that point, which was metal fabrication and welding. And we were able to, that's the royal we, Alex Ripley was, he dropped everything for a few days, made calls out to these individual businesses, explained the technical training group activity to them and how they could connect to apprenticeships. And we were able to get 5 letters of support within a couple of days, making sure that at least 5 apprentices would be offered positions upon graduation in our Huron County businesses, not lose them to Perth. And later on the next week, another couple of businesses reached out to us. So we're looking at between 7 and 10 apprentices now being placed in local businesses. So even before we've completed all the stages of the BRNE, we're able, with this additional information, to assist our businesses as we move forward. Under infrastructure improvements as our third theme, we're looking again, no surprise to you, but we're looking again at things like access to broadband, transportation, housing, natural gas. These are some of the big picture items that the county has noted. And again, although they weren't a surprise to us, again, we were able to get more information, which helps us to develop our strategy to move forward. And the fourth and final theme that we have noted is beneficial business supports. So that's everything from direct sector support to webinars, training, bringing things like working at heights training locally, digging into specifics that were requested by the businesses that we can attend to through our Small Business Enterprise Center, through our immigration partnership, and through our economic development, our EDOs, economic development officers, as well as our digital service squad. There were a number of requests for further digital support. Moving forward through those 200 requests that we had for additional support, we found further themes which did support the overall 4 themes. Businesses were looking for funding program opportunities, business planning and growth support, succession planning, digital marketing and web content, and they were looking for help with hiring and retaining staff. So moving on to the third stage, what we do now is we go out to the community, and we have been going out to the community to talk about the findings and to host sector and community roundtables to really get some good solid feedback on and brainstorm with our sector partners and the community around what can we do about these concerns? What do they need? What do they see as next steps? From that, we'll consolidate the information that we get at those roundtables and prepare a final report with action plans. And then at that point, we will communicate the results and move forward to our next stage where we'll implement and monitor. The purpose of the roundtables is to review the data summary as we are with you today at a very high level, in a very high level way, identify the key findings and priorities, and then dig into them and look for the power of the business community to help us identify goals that address the key findings and move forward from there to develop performance measures and action plans. This will form the basis of the economic development's strategic plan, and that will go to a work plan level for staff. So our engagements with key stakeholders to date have been a mini data retreat where we looked at the data and started to identify themes, discussion with the economic development department team and the planning department team, the economic development board, and then we will be moving into sector and community roundtables starting the first community roundtable will be this Friday with the Sustainable Huron Steering Committee, and then we'll be moving right into our sector roundtables the following week. And we'll be meeting not only with roundtables, but also face-to-face with some of our larger employers to see how we can assist them as well. So we're looking forward and hoping that some of these will be in person. But it is an opportunity to be at least virtually face-to-face to dig deeper. Once the goals and actions are determined, we'll create a 3 to 5 year strategic work plan. Although we do recognize that things change on a very regular basis in our world these days. So remembering that a strategic plan is a living document and it will be reassessed and adjusted as we move forward, but we'll really be focusing initially on that first year action plan. We'll make sure that the strategy aligns with the county vision and mission, and we will move to implementation of the strategic work plan and reporting back to make sure that everyone is aware of the goals and the objectives and the work of the Economic Development Department. At this time, I will stop sharing my screen, but I would invite any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Vicki. Just to give you a heads up, what I was talking about before is the county was involved in our acute labor shortage before COVID hit. We have been reached out and we have had industry reach back to us. They want to start that back up again. So I'll be having a conversation with you about that. The county was a big player in that. And as far as we have South Bruce wanting to join, Morris Turnberry wanting to join, ourselves. Yeah, for right now, it's so we need to come up with something to keep our factories from going to Mexico. So
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Anybody got any questions or comments for Vicki? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. Vicki, very comprehensive and quite a large undertaking to get this information together. I didn't realize it was going to be covering that many areas when we first talked about joining in with the survey. The only question I have on the survey is it doesn't really address the quotient of who's actually moving things forward. It's great to get, they want, they need for more housing and more workers and more sustainable infrastructure to promote economic development, but there's nothing in here that separates all those different participants, all the other municipalities of who's actually, jumped out of the raft and started kicking to push this raft in the right direction. There's great disparities. There's some municipalities that don't bother at all with helping to alleviate some of the problems that the business people have. So I would have liked to see a breakdown of, just exactly what, what portion all the different municipalities are actually engaged in pushing this boat to shore.
Through you, Mr. Reeve. Thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner, and we will come back to you with that. So part of building that overall strategy will be looking at who does what and how we can do that together. And I will tell you that we are in the process of putting together an application to the RED program right now that is a targeted intake on workforce attraction and retention. And it is, we will be in our project outline and our application, we'll be looking at working across the county to address workforce needs. And I am in the process of writing that right now, but I am consulting. We consulted with some of our municipal task force members, and I have been consulting this, well, today, last weekend, today, I guess, with some of our local businesses to look at what are some of the things we could do under workforce, and then the county would take the lead on that and invite participation from the sectors. So those sector roundtables become really important because as we decide what are the tactics to approach these themes, then we will look at who is the lead on each of those and what role can our partner municipalities play so that we are all rowing in the same direction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Palmer and then Deputy Reeve Sutton.
Thank you, Rave, to Vicki. Yeah, it was a good job. There's a lot there, and I'm sure it will help us down the road. However, this is a data summary report with hiring challenges under that, workforce shortages and challenges. I take issue with how farm labor is categorized as far as a skill level. It is like when a farmer needs to hire somebody, they shudder because, first of all, a lot of people don't know how to work, don't want to work. And then the rest, secondarily, they need an awful lot of skill to operate farm equipment, very expensive farm equipment, whether they're milking, mixing feed. Like, it's not just John Doe off the road can be taught in a day. It doesn't work that way. Maybe for picking vegetables, but not for sort of regarding the farm operation. I think you should split it into two categories with farm labor. Certainly, you can have farm labor as general labor, but then that would be for migrant workers, anybody that wants to pick vegetables. It's that category. That's general farm labor. But I think everything else, you can call it farm operations. That requires at least semi-skilled to skilled. Okay, I know this for a fact.
Councillor Palmer, if I could just point of order, we're kind of getting down into the weeds again. If you want to have that conversation with Vicki, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to have with you. If you don't mind, maybe Vicki could just answer some of that for you. If she has an answer, is that okay?
Through you, Mr. Reeve. Thank you for your points, Councillor Palmer. And the listings were not to be exclusive. They were to demonstrate. So for farm labor, absolutely, farm labor can be general labor, stone pickers. Although there's machinery that does that now to a degree. They can be semi-skilled. So herdsperson comes to mind, or they can be skilled robotics specialists. So there is a gamut in that farm labor. And so the illustrations that are in the data summary report, when we say general labor, semi-skilled and skilled, we often get, well, what do you mean? And so we tried to highlight what could fall under those categories, and they are by no means exclusive. So they were just there for representation. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but I am a farmer. And I've done all those jobs from general labor, well, not robotics. That's out of my skill level. That's skilled beyond me. But your point is very well taken. there is a broad range of skills involved in farming, as all of our businesses. Many of our businesses have general labor through to highly skilled labor. So they were just meant to be representational. Or
Yeah, thanks for identifying that.
yeah,
That's good, Councillor Palmer. We're good with that? Okay, thank you. Deputy Reeve Sight, you're muted.
Appreciate that. Sorry about that. Vicky, thank you very much for the comprehensive report. As the other councillors have mentioned, I'm actually a little bit surprised when we talk about hiring challenges, that 41% of the businesses report difficulties hiring. I was anticipating that to say 98%, because we are definitely in a market where it's employee choice. They have a wide range of where people want to go, what type they want. COVID has definitely changed the aspect of what people are willing to do, or what sometimes before they would not go with what they are passionate about, but what they necessarily need to do in order to whatever to do. COVID has changed that respect, where people look at themselves differently now, in the sense that I only want to do what I'm passionate about. Life is too short to do something. So I'm honestly surprised from the hiring challenges that it's not higher, as opposed to the survey that was completed. Like, I mean, I don't think it should be surprising that a lot of businesses are struggling to hire people, especially during COVID and all that. So, that's my comment. But I mean, ultimately, I was surprised with the data, in the sense of just how the hiring challenges are. And the other question that I had was, when they talk about lower taxes, are they talking about county-wide taxes or lower tier taxes? What exactly is the detail in that?
through you, Mr. Reeve. Thank you so much, Deputy Reeve Sipe. I would concur. We were all surprised with that first number that you mentioned at 41%. We too thought that number would be much higher. So we're very excited to get to our sector roundtables and say, tell us more.
Yeah.
We really want to hear more about that. Crystal ball gazing or wild guesses. When you read some of the other responses, like, do you intend to expand? And it's sort of like, no. You can sort of, some of the comments, some of the text comments that came with that were, I might want to, but I can't hire people. So there is it does allude to more than 41% would like to hire more people, but they may have just accepted in the pandemic, or with the change in the workforce reality, that they're not going to. By the other token, there are a lot of long-standing employees in the county, and so, maybe the retention problem isn't quite as bad as we think. So as I said, it was really interesting to read a lot of the survey results and look at the numbers, because we got a lot more granular information. Before the survey, we thought that the largest deficit in workforce was general labor. It's pretty well spread around all three categories, for example. So then, I'm sorry, Deputy Reeve Sipe, your second question?
Yeah, no, and I think ultimately, that's going to happen. And as I'm thinking about it now, I talked about the taxes. When they talk about lowering taxes, are they talking about county-wide or lower tier? I think I'm guessing that's going to some of the detail that's going to be coming out in these roundtable discussions. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Reeve. That is part of the detail. The other one we're most curious about is, quite consistently, we heard we'd like a reduction in red tape. And so we're very interested in, is that red tape federal? Is that red tape provincial? Is that red tape countywide? Is that red tape, or is it something else? And so this is one of the downsides of not doing the interview. We can't dig in right on site. But that's why we've got lots of questions for those roundtable discussions so that we can understand some of the concerns a bit better. And tax and red tape are two of the big ones. So thank you for your questions.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Anita Van Henderson first and then Paul Heffer second. Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey, and through you to Vicky. Vicky, I would like to see there were 4,000 surveys sent out. I would like to see a division of how agriculture, retail, manufacturing, how many were sent to those sectors, because the main survey account I pick on agriculture here is 276, 38%, but that's only from the surveys that came back and not how many were sent out. So maybe the 276 were 80% of agricultural businesses that participated in the survey. So that is something that would help me to see what's going on in rural and in the more urban areas of our township. Is that possible, or?
Through you, Mr. Reeve. That's a really good question and a good point. The businesses are all businesses that are on our business list, and Cole is with us, and he is my statistician wizard. And I do believe that Cole can compile those numbers for you. I don't know that he can do it on the spot, but I do believe he can compile them and get them back to you. Cole, would you like to participate at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't go as far as to call me a wizard, Vicky, but I can absolutely put those numbers together and provide them for you, Anita. Great question. And yes, I will look into that for you.
Thank you very much. Would be very helpful.
If I could just point out, Cole, if you wouldn't mind that, sending that to the township, and the township will send it to all councillors.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Paul, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Yes, Vicky, thank you for your numbers here, but my eyesight's not real good here. And I'm looking at on your page number 9, and it's the future business plans. And I'm seeing that 66% are going to remain the same. And that 22%, which makes up 88%, they're planning on expanding. Like those two grays are so close. I just want to make sure.
Paul, can you confirm that, please?
Yes, I'm looking at the same thing right now, and you are correct.
Thank you. So are you happy with seeing after the last 2 years and the get back you got from these people, are you happy seeing that at 88%?
I think that through you, Mr. Reeve, I think that is an extremely healthy response. It is higher than I anticipated.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't want to be negative. I do believe Huron has a very strong economy. I do think this last lockdown took an incredible toll, and we are just starting to see some of that. And so as a department, we have been reaching out and having conversations with our businesses, and a number of businesses have been calling us, and we're grateful for that. We do believe we still need to be vigilant to make sure that those numbers remain solid, that we do have our businesses are supported to be stable and supported to grow, and even supported to move through succession. Even if that succession is out of business, we want to make sure that's done in the most successful way possible. We were thrilled with those business results, but we are very mindful that we need to give continued support to our business community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Vicky? Go ahead, Councillor McBurney. You unmute, please.
There we go. Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey, and through you to Vicky. I don't really have no questions, but I thank you for the report. It's a very good, informative report, and I thank you and Cole. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anita Van Henderson, Councillor.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. This is just a note that I'm really proud of the business in North Huron that a quarter of them filled out the survey. That's the most from the whole in Huron County, and I think that's very good. I'm very thankful for that.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else. Vicky, I want to thank you and your staff for coming out and giving us this information. It is well read and received well. And there was, as you see, lots of comments on it. So we'll move forward. So thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve and Council. Have a great evening.
Report 7.1.1.
Reeve?
Sorry.
Sorry,
ahead,
that's
Deputy Reeve, sorry.
Deputy Reeve. I just wanted, before we move on, I jumped on the meeting just as you were going through the meeting. I think it was the consent agenda. And I did want to acknowledge that I did have a pecuniary interest, that I actually probably voted for the consent agenda on the bills of accounts. So I just want to make mention of that now. Check number 507727 is a reimbursement of expenses to my spouse, as she's an employee with the municipality in the daycare center. This is under the bills and accounts. So that check is to my wife, Tiffany Sipe. So I do want to acknowledge to the staff and the council that I did vote in favor of the bills and accounts. But obviously that amount was $47. It's a reimbursement, but I want to make sure that I acknowledge that the conflict of interest and apologize for being late coming into the meeting.
Thank you very much, Deputy Reeve Sipe, and it is duly noted. Okay, moving on to 7.1.1, the Restricted Act of Council, lame duck period, delegation of authority. Does anybody have any questions for Carson Lamb would speak to this one? It's pretty straightforward, is it not? Not seeing any questions, I'm going to call for a mover. I have Paul Heffer moving. I have Rick Faulkner seconding. Okay. Kevin.
Can you just clarify who your seconder is, Your Worship? Is it Councillor McBurney or Councillor Falconer there?
It's Kevin Faulkner. It's
Okay,
written
thank you.
It's written right in front of me. You'd think I could read that far away, couldn't I? My apologies. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated February 22nd, 2022, regarding the restricted acts of council, most commonly known as lame duck periods, delegation of authority for information purposes. And further, that the clerk be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for the March 7th, 2022 regular council meeting, delegating authority from August 19th, 2022 to November 21st, 2022, to the Chief Administrative Officer pursuant to Section 275 of the Municipal Act 2001 to take action where necessary on certain restrictions listed in Section 275 subsection 3 of the Municipal Act 2001 as follows: the appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality, the hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality, the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has exceeded $50,000 at the time of disposal, and making any expenditures or incurring any other liability which exceeds $50,000. And further, that the bylaw shall come into force only in the event it is determined by the clerk with certainty that less than 75% of the current members of council will be returning to sit on the new council. So Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer? And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.1.2 is a CL-2022-06, use of corporate resources during election policy. Does anybody have any questions for Clam on that one? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes, Reeve. I just want a clarification on is renting a facility during a campaign allowed under under this policy if if the campaign were to rent space from the municipality? That's not using the corporate without paying for it. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly, or am I wrong in that?
So through your worship, to answer Deputy Reeve Sipe's question, that in my mind would be permitted, right? So basically, the provision in there is no candidate shall undertake any election campaign or campaign related activities on township property during regular working hours or during meetings. So I guess if it's a leased space and it's not during township staff's hours, that is likely sufficient. That being said, best practice would certainly be if you're renting space for some sort of campaign event. Best practice would certainly be to avoid municipal property altogether. But that would be the provision in there that would pertain to that.
Yeah, just a follow up, Reeve. I was just concerned. Like I could understand when it would say you can't use it when you're not paying for it, but if your campaign is willing to pay for it, I was concerned about that. I mean, I don't know if anybody was or was going to. It just seemed ironic that we have lots of meeting spaces and stuff. I can understand the context, so I appreciate the clerk for clarifying. Thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone, then do I have a mover? I have Deputy Reeve Sipe moving. Seconder would be Anita Van Henderson. Carson, I'll hand it over to you. Not a good time to lose Carson, is it? You're muted, Carson.
Can you all hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, my audio cut out. So I believe I have Deputy Reeve Sipe as a mover and Councillor Van Hittersum as a seconder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated February 22nd, 2022 regarding the use of corporate resources during an election policy for information purposes, and further that in accordance with Section 8818 of the Municipal Elections Act 1996, Council hereby approves the use of corporate resources during an election policy, and further that the clerk be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for the March 7th, 2022 regular council meeting to adopt the use of corporate resources during an election policy. So Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum? And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to Finance Department, 7.2.1 is the 2022-11 long-term debt update, which is under Director Chapman. Is there any questions for him, concerns, comments that you folks want to make on this? Not seeing any. It's pretty straightforward. Can I have a mover? I have Paul Heffer moving. Can I have a seconder? I have Rick McBurney seconding. And I'll hand it over to you, Carson again. Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just bear with me here. My computer is slow, very, very slow on me right now. So again, your mover is Councillor Heffer, and your seconder was who, sorry?
Rick McBurney.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer? Councillor Heffer? Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 7.2.2, the non-budgetary year-end reserves and fund transfer. Does anybody have any questions for Director Chapman? Not seeing any. Again, it's pretty straightforward. Do I have a mover? I have Deputy Reeve Sipes moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Chris Palmer seconding. And Carson, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Deputy Reeve Sipe,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heifer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer, Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.3, there's nothing from Rec and Community Services tonight. 7.4, this is Director McCarthy, and this is 7.4.1, and the appointment of a Chief Building Official Bylaw Enforcement Officer. Are there any questions for Director McCarthy from councillors? Go ahead, Councillor Heifer.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, to Jamie, with the, you mentioned about keeping on the gentleman from Howick. Will he be, his remuneration will stay the same, I take it?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Heifer, yes, it will stay the same.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? Deputy Reeve Sipes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Obviously, we just talked about the business retention and hiring issue. This is a win. I mean, this is a win in any way, shape, or form in this market that we can hire a chief building official and bylaw enforcement officer for our municipality. So, I appreciate the work that the CAO, HR, Melissa Lamont did, as well as Jamie, your team, in order to succeed in getting somebody on hopefully as effective on March the 21st. So this is a good news story for the municipality and for our ratepayers.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Not seeing any. I'm going to call for a mover. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving, and I have Deputy Reeve Sipes seconding. Carson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated February 22nd, 2022, regarding the appointment of a Chief Building Official / Bylaw Enforcement Officer for information purposes. And further, that Council approves the hiring of Miss Nancy Small as the Township of North Huron's Chief Building Official / Bylaw Enforcement Officer effective March 21st, 2022. And further, that Council authorizes staff to exercise the termination provision in the service agreement with RSM Consulting for building services. And further, that Council directs the clerk to prepare the necessary bylaws for the March 7th, 2022 regular meeting for adoption. So, Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heifer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.4.2 is the former Blythe Public Works and Fire Building. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments for Director McCarthy? I'm going to have Kevin Faulkner go first.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm just curious as looking through the report and the options that are being requested by staff. I'm a little taken back by some of the languages in here. They want to maintain the former salt sheds for storage purposes and assist in alleviating space constraints being experienced by the public works buildings. I'm just curious, the works buildings that we had that are down there now, we've had them for 50 years and they served their purpose, and they got to the point where they weren't serving their purpose anymore. And we took on a humongous bill, $4 million to build a public works building and a fire department, but also almost $500,000 to put up a salt shed. I'm just curious as to, was it short-sighted as to what we needed to build? I'm curious. So I thought we were building for the next 50 years, and now we've only gone a year out, and we're already outgrown that building. That's very short-sighted for request. We had already, pinned these buildings as surplus, and we've gone through many meetings as to what to do with them and how to, and gone through, surveys and reports. I'm just curious, maybe you can answer to why are we in such a spot now that we have to keep something that we already said it was surplus and spent money to replace? Where did we go wrong?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, I don't believe you guys went wrong at all. The buildings that I was suggesting we retain was the one in better shape, which was the former salt shed. We wouldn't be keeping it for salt. It would be for smaller fleet vehicles such as the zero turns and lawnmowers. So it wouldn't need to hold large types of equipment. The public works shop that was built is adequate for what we require, but there are reductions that have occurred throughout the township that have taken away storage space for public works. So in order to just make sure that there are some items that are just out of the way when they're not needed, such as lawnmowers, when a big plow or all of our winter equipment comes into the shop, we could just tuck those away. That was the reason for the request.
So have we acquired more equipment than we had before we built the building? Is that what you're saying? That we've got more apparatus, that we need more space? We need to build more space?
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Faulkner, no, but we used to store some of our equipment in the Armories building, which was demolished. And we also kept some of the equipment at the old former Wingham Trailer Park. There used to be a little shed there as well, which was also demolished.
So so now I'm confused again. So do you need space in the south end of the township for north end equipment?
Well, the equipment is used all over the township. So our zero turn mowers, they can be stored anywhere in the township. They're all the same township.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sense of this. Because somewhere along the lines we don't have a big enough building for $4 million. I'm just kind of perturbed with that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner. Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Rave. I don't know, from my experience, you can never have enough storage space. So if the building is decent, it makes sense to me to keep it. You just never know when it's going to be needed, and what Jamie's talking about makes total sense.
Anyone else? I'm going to speak to this one a bit. I have had conversations with staff and with some of the councillors. I just want to put it out there that we're looking at spending a lot of money again. And when I was on council years ago, the fire building was condemned. That's why we built the first new one in Laya. I know what we requested of staff, and I think as a council, we made a bit of a mistake. So again, I will take responsibility for this. Rather than spend more money on it and continue down this path, a couple of things I want to mention. One of the ones is if it's a parking spot, the conversation was that they wouldn't park on the main street, so the business owners would be happy during the theater. But I think we all understand that everybody's going to fill the main street up first, no matter where you have parking. Then they're going to go off the main street for parking. The second item I want to put together too is we decided not to go any farther because of financing. I'm wondering if we wouldn't want to, as a council, take a step back and have our staff have a look at if we can legally sell the property the way it sits without going any further. I believe we have, Jamie, $100,000 into looking at cleaning the gravel up. If we could look at, if we could sell the building as is, have our solicitor let us know, or I believe there's one more study we're waiting for anyway. Give Jamie the time to bring that information forward and make a decision then. This was a bit of a rushed one on her. She wasn't prepared to put this on the agenda yet anyway. She's waiting for one more study or something to come in anyway. At the same time, we want to make sure that the town is not responsible forever and a day if you were to sell property that had salt on it that had sunk into the ground. So I'm wondering if council would maybe be interested in accepting the report for information purposes and asking staff to bring a report back for the North Huron legal obligations and the final report that Jamie's waiting for. Would anybody be interested in that rather than going ahead and again keeping the land and paying to keep it clean and paying and paying and paying? Go ahead, Councillor McBurney.
Yeah, I'd make that motion that we do that. Get staff to provide that information, as long as the township's not responsible.
Thank you very kindly. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Not seeing any, I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
So I guess Councillor McBurney and Councillor Falconer, feel free to let me know if this isn't entirely what you're looking for. But right now, the draft motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated February 22nd, 2022, regarding an update on the former Blythe Public Works property, and further that staff be directed to investigate whether the property could be sold as is without the township incurring any future liability.
I see two nods, Carson.
So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
No.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-1, with the no being Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Okay. Fire Department, we have no reports. Office of the CAO, we have a CAO 2022-03 Economic Development Officer. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments that council would like to raise for our CAO? Okay. I have Councillor Heffer. You're muted, Paul.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Yes, I went through Dwayne's report. I thank him for it. I noticed on the 17th, the council approved a community engagement coordinator. And then it says, along with the EC dev officer, they'll work together to attract businesses, industries, and tourists for the township. Then it says the CEO says that a number of projects are now underway and will continue. He will continue to lead with these projects and allow the EC officer to focus on, and there's approximately 5-6 things there. Then again, the financial impact was $115.25 dollars. That is thousand. Then I saw the action plan. There's 18 jobs on it, or that was mentioned. But I'd like to make a comment that some of these jobs, I think, like on number 7, create a website pages, like those website pages are already on our North Huron site. Also with number 15, or no, number 16, the businesses directory, there's 118 on our website, so I figure that job's done too. The reason why I mentioned this, I just noticed the coordinator is already doing a number of these jobs. And again, the couple there that are already complete, I feel. That's why I like to make this consideration for the coordinator to do the job for a year, and then we look at it, and then we could fine tune it. That's just my thought. And why do I ask for this? This is a significant cost, 140K from each year on, plus what we're paying to the ECDEV down in the county. And we saw what they're doing already for us. And I think there's a lot of information that our coordinator would be able to work at and work out with a lot of that stuff. And the taxpayers cannot continually endure these ever-growing substantial costs. And we heard that tonight, bringing forward. Well, that was a complaint that came from some of these reports that came in. And we're quite high on that. And if I understood Vicky right, on that department. Another thing, I feel that one of the jobs in there is making work on the main street. I feel the person that owns the store, that it's their responsibility to make sure the building's full. If it isn't, they're paying 100% taxes. I know at one time it was 70, 75%, it worked its way up, but now they're paying 100% tax. I feel we shouldn't be taking taxpayers' dollars to find people to fill these stores, that it should be, the onus should be on them. So that is where I stand with that. Thank you very much, Council.
CEO Evans, did you want to respond to that?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, just in terms of, as been noted in terms of, so with respect on the work plan, I guess I'll just, first of all, the work plan was really put together just to give further insight into what would be envisioned in the event of an economic development officer. So the work plan itself is not before council for approval. It's really just to help inform you in terms of, what would be envisioned for the position. And in terms of Councillor Heffer, in terms of your comment, in terms of number 7, for example, yeah, for sure, there's some material that's already been developed on the website. But you'll notice it says work with the community engagement coordinator. So the community engagement coordinator has already developed some material for the website. But the economic development officer, will bring a different perspective and maybe some additional or new information, for example, that may be beneficial and enhance our website. Yeah, and in terms of develop a business directory, encourage existing businesses to take advantage of existing services. Really, the intent there, and maybe it's perhaps not, is really it's intended to be kind of a one-stop shop sort of thing, that an individual, if they're looking to expand their business or looking to relocate their business, that they could contact, for example, this person, and this person would have everything, at their fingertips, including access to other economic development organizations. So I don't know if that, just on those couple of points, but I guess the work plan again is really just to provide some insight. Job descriptions are very helpful and beneficial, but in terms of the more, digging down a little bit, in terms of the more day-to-day, this is kind of what would be envisioned. And whether or not this is what council envisions for this position, and by all means, if not, if we could get some direction, and we'll undertake to take in the direction that council wishes it to go.
Thank you very much. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. I'll try not to repeat all in any of the points, but bear with me if I do, please. Yeah, the the cost of having this person, you know, it's 2% plus in tax increase and year after year after year. And like at 115,000 plus spending money, the 25, which will probably go up. It just, this person will not pay for themselves. And this is how I look at, not all jobs require that way of thinking, but this one does. This person has to bring business in and has to pay for themselves, or why bother? I feel that the township has done pretty well by it, you know, by itself in this department. And then our new community engagement coordinator, Denise, she's a very skilled person, and she's like we've heard, she does a lot of these things and could do more. We need to give her a chance to do more, because it's a whole lot cheaper. I hate putting it that way. It doesn't cost as much to just have her position going and let her just, you know, grow and do more and more. Now, I've got a concern. Like, you've got to think in these terms. Say you're, how do the other directors feel? How would they feel? Some of them have 10, others have 40 plus people under them, huge responsibilities. How do they feel with a new position coming in with one person under them, and, you know, pay grade, you know, it's going to be similar. And how would you feel if you're one of them? I think it will cause some disgruntled employees, and that's the last thing that we want. And we do our best to, you know, to give our people what, you know, the most we can. But this would be an issue, I think. And well, and of course the work plan, that was interesting. Thank you, Dwayne, for that. It does give us an idea what the person would do, but again, I didn't see anything in there that our coordinator can't do. So I just have huge issues with this. We can't afford it. We have 5,000 people. We don't have any land that's going to be developed for commercial, or very little, a little bit around Tim Hortons.
Thank you, Councilor Palmer. Councilor Palmer's point. We get Dwayne to answer some of those questions for you. Just wonder, Dwayne, before he forgets all the questions, can he answer some of those questions for you?
All right.
Thank you. And then Anita Van Henderson wants to speak.
Yeah, I'm not sure in terms of with the questions, but in terms of all of the questions, but essentially, you know, the intention here would be that the economic development coordinator would work with the community engagement coordinator. So the community engagement coordinator would essentially be more that in the community sort of thing, in terms of working with their community groups and organizations, people like the Alice Munro Festival, the Muskrat Festival, you know, those sort of groups and organizations. The economic development coordinator would be more higher level, more of an umbrella in terms of, so if you have an existing business that's looking for, you know, they've outgrown their space. Maybe I'll just touch on the business retention expansion study from earlier this evening in terms of, as you saw there, Ms. Lass outlined a number of undertakings or things that need to be completed. And she had made reference to working in partnership, and it's in terms of the economic, my vision would be that the economic development officer would be that individual who would work in partnership, for example, with the county and with Community Futures and other organizations to implement that business retention and expansion. I think the community engagement coordinator, it's going to be a busy position as it is. But if it's council's wishes for this person to do that, it'll be a matter of, we'll just have to manage that workload in terms of that moving forward. So I don't know if I've answered the question, or if there's other questions maybe that.
Councilor Palmer, are you good with that, or did you have further questions?
Well, it answers some, but I have to, we all know, Reeve, that we don't always ask questions, but we're allowed to have comments on things. I hope you agree, right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of times, some of this, a lot of it, it was just comments. If I had some dire questions, I would have talked to Dwayne ahead of time. Okay.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much. Anita?
Thank you, Brave Bailey. Mine are actually more comments as well. Councillor Heffer is concerned about tax increases. Tax increases will happen if there is no growth in the community. We are looking at a big expansion in Hutton Heights. We are looking to sell the airport and find some more land to develop housing, business opportunities, whatever. This economic development officer will find those opportunities for us, will help us with that, and will give us ideas. The economic development officer is not for one business downtown Wingham or Blythe that it doesn't find any person who can go that. The county economic development officer is going, and in the business retention plan, the survey we just had the presentation from, succession planning, 31% of businesses are struggling with that. An economic development officer can help. We have an economic development and retention committee in our township, and they have great ideas, but they're mostly volunteers. And for them, it is very hard to find the time and the knowledge to go out and find new businesses. They just can't do that. We need a person who has the education, the knowledge, and the will to have our township grow and get them the businesses we need. And for the work plan, I see a work plan as a living document that can be adjusted every way we need to adjust it. If it's not working, then I think staff will come back with a report for us and say, yeah, we need something else, or we need to adjust this. And I think that's most of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor McBurney, and then Deputy Reeve Site.
Yes, thank you, Reeve Bailey, and through you, Dwayne. I have concern with the cost as well as what I've been hearing. I think an economic development person is excellent, but I don't agree with it at this time personally. Anyway, that was my thoughts and my comments.
Thank you very much, Rick. Deputy Reeve Site.
Thank you, Reeve. From where I see a lot of the effort being done is a lot of effort is being done by our economic development committee with a lot of ideas, and as Councillor Van Harrison indicated, but we need boots on the ground. We need a strategy plan. We need a strategic plan with regards to economic development. And I mean, this is what this individual is willing to be responsible for. Council is going to be inclusive of that, plan with the CAO to develop what an economic strategy is post-COVID. What does it look like for us? Like, what does it look like for the businesses in North Huron? What does it look like? And ultimately, right now, we don't know that. And we don't have somebody who is focused solely on this part of our business. And when we talk about, when council talks about taxes, I have to always recognize the fact that when you ask somebody about taxes and you ask somebody what you want to take away, nobody wants to take away anything. They just want enhancements. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is to provide an enhancement, in my mind, to the business community, to provide us with an opportunity to move forward and succession plan what our economic outlook is going to be. Status quo is not going to work in this market. It's not going to work in the future. This council has not been status quo on a lot of things, and we've made some very difficult decisions over the past 3.5 years. This is again is one of them as well. But we need to understand, are we willing to invest in our municipality, or are we not willing to invest in our municipality? And to me, my comment is, I think this is an investment that you need to make. There is councilors that have concerns. I respect those concerns. I really do. But I mean, this I look at as an investment in the future of businesses and economic development in our community. And if we let this go by, I don't know that we'll get it back anytime soon. Thank you, Reed.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I'm going to take a minute and speak to this because this is my baby. This is what I did. So, first of all, when somebody says it has to be done in a hurry, or somebody says there are reasons for not doing it, my first question is, compared to who? Compared to what? On what experience are you talking? So I'm going to back this up a bit, and I'm going to tell you a story about a council that's 3 years into council. We did more in the first year than the last 20 years. Because for 20 years, we had a barn, and we built a nice barn 20 years ago. We didn't hire anybody to bring the cattle in off the field, so they stayed out in the field. This council has moved a lot. To give you an idea of economic development, we can brag, but we have 8 months left. I am strongly suggesting this is a good move. This is like right now have a store full of goods, but we have nobody at the till. Chris, there's always the worry that the person we hire may not be the right person. I don't know. One thing I can tell you about economic development, though, it's a long shot that always wins. There's the few we can pick off, the little bit of fruit hanging low, and that's fine. But we started out here and we started developing in Blythe. We stopped fighting with our neighbors. We're selling the land in Morris Turnberry. We're going to buy, if I get my way, if we agree on, we're going to buy land in East Wawanosh, and we're going to have little factories there, and we're going to have more houses. We did with Hutton Heights what everybody talked about for 40 years. This council did it. We pushed hard. Our staff have been fantastic. They must be sick of me calling them during off business hours, but we have achieved great things. We have South Bruce wanting to come to our acute labor shortage because we're making things happen. We really are. If this person is the person that's going to drive that home, this person is the one that's going to be doing this full time. And I don't want him organizing a baseball team, getting a hockey tournament. I made this clear at the Economic Development Committee meeting. I have a vision of where we should be, and I hope this person will push it. And that is, the more buildings we build, the better off our tax base is, the easier we can afford the trucks. You see where I'm going with this? But you can't expect your person that's not trained like Dwayne or Carson. They're not trained to do this work. This is a specialty. He used to work for development banks doing this kind of stuff. It's a specialty. And I'm telling you guys, this sitting council, has pushed this township so far ahead with tax reduction by the building that's going to take place and the building that has take places. We need somebody in charge of that to push that through and continue that. In business, you stop, you die. There's no other choices. And this council started the ball rolling. So I really hope I can get the support on this one. So if there's no further comments or questions, I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
You still need to move
Trevor
the
Sipe,
seconder, your
sorry,
worship.
Carson, just 1 second. Trevor Sipe had something to say.
I was just going to indicate, Reeve, that you need a mover and seconder. So I'm going to move the report and the recommendation as presented by the CAO.
Hey, Kevin Faulkner, please. You're going to second it? Thank you. So we have Deputy Reeve Sipe and Kevin Faulkner seconding Carson. I'm a little ahead of myself.
So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the CAO dated February 22nd, 2022 regarding an economic development officer position for information purposes. And further that council approves the attached economic development officer job description as presented. And further that council authorizes the CAO to commence the hiring process for a full-time economic development officer. So Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
No.
Councillor McBurney?
No.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
No.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 4-3, with the noes being Councillor Palmer, Councillor McBurney, and Councillor Heffer.
Thank you very kindly. And that was 7.6.1, right, Carson?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Thank you. 7.6.2 is the Hutton Heights surplus land declaration. We've all had a chance to review and read this. Are there any questions for the CAO on this one? I'll open it up to council for questions or comments. Again, I think this, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. So we're asked about options, and I like option 3, and that's the one that's recommended. Are we saying that a potential developer would have to take all 20 acres? Like I don't, this is not related to option 2 where there's blocks. I'm talking, is that the only option we take is the full 20 acres? It's just a question, that's all.
I'll handle that over to the CAO.
Your worship, yes, that's the intention under option 3. Option 2 creates blocks through a plan of subdivision, but option 3 would be all 20 acres be sold to one developer.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Heffer.
That's through you, Reeve. To Dwayne on the financial impact. On the second half of that, it says as noted. Could you just explain that development charge credits, please? I just like to hear what it means by that.
Sure. So essentially, what we'd be asking for, and I will answer the question, and then Darcy, feel free to jump in and add any additional information. Essentially, development charges, the developer would almost prepay the development charges, and then we would use that money to help use that to finance our external servicing costs. And basically, it would be like, and it's referred to as development charge credits. So it'd be credits that we as municipality would hold. But in terms of the development charge that would be charged, the development charge that would be due at the time of a development would be based on the development charge that's in effect at the time, but they would be given a credit towards what they've already, I'll call it prepaid. Percy, is that, feel free to jump in, and maybe you've got a different way to explain it than I do.
Yes, thank you, through the Reeve. Dwayne did a pretty good job. I think the intention behind this is to say, like, if these lands are going to develop at 103 units, which is kind of proposed based on what the township's been going through, and say, you know, just for sake of argument, the total unit yield in Hutton Heights with all the other lands and the existing residential, so on and so forth, is 206 units. That means that, you know, these lands cover half of the total units. So therefore, those units are going to have to pay for half of the servicing costs. So instead of having to go out and the township incur debt and take on risk that it might take 10, 15, 25 years for all of those properties to build out and have to hold that debt for that long, going through the process of going through a development charge credit process means that we get our money up front. Therefore, it reduces the township's risk. It reduces the reliance on debt and it helps to solidify our cash flow going forward. There are provisions in the Development Charge Act that allow municipalities to do this only for the hard services, so the water, the sewer, and the roads. So it just means that they're paying that, the developer would have to pay that upfront at the time of subdivision approval, instead of being able to do it over 5 to 10 years as they build out. But it makes a huge difference for the municipality, because then we don't have to carry that debt, and it helps our cash flow overall.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. Just a quick question is I just going through the options there. We had discussed at another council meeting of adding a clause to any new agreement for subdivisions that we do, that there be a time limit or buyback, just so we don't get just so we don't get in the same condition we did with the HOA, where you're 15 years and nothing's happening, and we have no recourse as to go forward with it.
I'm going to pass that over to CEO Dwayne Evans.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So, Councillor Faulkner, just in terms of on page 4, there's 6 conditions actually outlined there, in terms of conditions of sale. And one condition is there that the purchaser would agree to a 1-year buyback clause from the date of closing.
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you for pointing out. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Just curiosity again. With this credit, if we had known that we would have received, was it for percentage, Dwayne, or all of it? 100% or a percentage of? I didn't catch that part. Maybe answer that first, please.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, I'm not a percentage of
the credit. If we ask the developer for service charge credit, development charge credit, was it for 100% of the amount or a percentage of? I didn't catch that.
This is not something I specifically have done before, but my understanding is that it would be 100%.
Okay.
But then if we change our development charges, then I'll call it the difference would be owing to the municipality at the time of the build.
Okay. May I finish, Reeve?
Yes. Yes.
Knowing that, if we had known that before we took on a 25-year loan, would we have still done it? Because we'll get as soon as we sell the place to a developer, we'll essentially get our monies needed.
Through Your Worship, in terms of, so it's important to remember that in terms of the external servicing services a much larger area than just our property. So all of those properties that will be receiving service will be contributing towards those external servicing costs. This would just really be the development charges that we would collect on our lands, but there'd be additional funds that would be received from other properties that are owned privately. So this will help offset some of the financial cost, but it's certainly, we're still going to be in a situation where we're still going to require a loan to do the external servicing. Like the development charges that we collect on our lands only are not going to pay all of the external servicing costs.
Okay, thanks.
Darcy, did you want to add that to that, or I see you pop up?
Through Your Worship, I was just going to say it's actually a really good question from Councillor Palmer, because the report that we just had taken a couple meetings ago directed staff to go to Infrastructure Ontario for the loan application. At the end of the day, the only comment that I was going to make based on Councillor Palmer's question is that we'll still make the application for the expected, give or take $6 million in total cost. So that at least locks us in to having that capability if we need it, and also helps to set construction and long-term financing rates. And then when the bylaws actually come forward for council approval on the final dollar amount, once the construction's done, I'm assuming that it will be less than that $6 million. So we'll only secure the debt that's actually needed.
Okay, Chris. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, concerns? Not seeing any more. For 7.6.2 for Hutton Heights surplus land declaration. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. Do I have a seconder? Anita Van Henderson seconds. I'm going to hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the CAO dated February 22nd, 2022 regarding the municipally owned Hutton Heights lands for information purposes. And further, that council directs staff to survey and sever approximately 20 acres of municipally owned lands in Hutton Heights for residential development purposes. And further, that council declares approximately 20 acres of severed municipally owned lands in Hutton Heights as surplus to the needs of the municipality. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with disposal of the severed lands in Hutton Heights in accordance with the township's sale and disposition policy using the direct advertising method and an expression of interest process. And further, that council directs staff to invite interested purchasers to submit an expression of interest detailing the type of housing that would be constructed on the severed lands. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a report for a future meeting detailing all offers and expressions of interest received for council's consideration. So, Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Henderson?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Correspondence is next. TJ's Taxi and Delivery Service requesting an increase of tariff on charges. Carson, would you give me a hand here just deciding how to handle this? Does this have to come back to council as a report, or can we just recommend this to the OK? I'm just not sure.
Yeah, so I can, Your Worship. So as included, as council will have seen in the agenda package, so TJ's Taxi and Delivery Services has written a letter to council, and what they're requesting is an increase to the tariff of charges, which is contained in Schedule B of the Township of North Huron taxi bylaw. And so that bylaw was updated in 2020. And we found at the time that those tariff of charges were in line with neighboring municipalities. However, I believe the letter notes that kind of with the prices of gas and all other factors resulting in increased expenses, that they are hoping that the municipality will increase that tariff of charges schedule in the taxi bylaw. So I guess that's entirely council's prerogative whether that's something that wants to be pursued or not. There are in their proposed tariff rates, there are some fees in there that are missing. So if council was wanting to proceed with something like this, I think what I would do is bring back a draft report with an updated schedule to potentially amend that Schedule B in your taxi bylaw. So that's kind of the an overview of the request and some context on probably the process that would be followed. But yeah, at this point, seeking council direction on what council wants to do with that request, if anything.
Okay, questions, comments, concerns from council? Not seeing any. I'm gonna, unless Chris, you're not on, Chris. So if you speak up if you want to say something. So I would suggest this is another one that we receive for information and have staff bring a report back on the request. Would council be okay with that? Paul, you're going to move that? Okay, Rick, you're going to second that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll hand it over to Carson.
So the motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the request regarding a request for increase to tariff of charges from TJ's Taxi and Delivery Services. And further, that council directs staff
Oops. We lost
In
you.
regard to the request.
We lost you, Carson.
And, yep, okay, so I'm back here again, my apologies. So the mover and the seconder are fine with that, motion?
I see heads shaking, yes.
Okay. So I'll call the vote.
Hey, Reeve,
Yes. Sorry,
Um,
go ahead.
can Carson actually read that motion again, as it kept cutting out for me?
Okay. Carson, do you mind just reading that one more time, please? Maybe.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor would be that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receives the request for request to increase the tariff of charges from TJ's Taxi and Delivery Services for information purposes, and further that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report in regard to the request.
We have a mover and
Councilor
seconder.
McBurney?
Both, they're fine.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councilor Falconer,
Yes.
Councilor Heffer,
Yes.
Councilor Van Hittersum,
Yes.
Councilor Palmer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. We're going to go from there to council report, Reeves activity report. The county has chosen 3.6% increase on the taxes. There was quite a few new hires, well talked out. It was actually a good session, and I think it's a good budget. And I think it's all jokes aside, I think they again are moving in the right direction. The other thing is Anita Van Hintersum. She is our new active chair, and Renata Cyber is our vice chair for our Economic Development Committee. She may want to speak to that when it's her turn. Congratulations. And finally, we have the coldest night of the year is going to be this Saturday, and it's a United Way program. And it's for the new Northern Huron Connection Center, serving North Huron, Howick, and Morris Turnbury. So this is a place where the people that are really down and out, they don't have to go to Godrich now. They can actually come to North Huron and there'll be we're putting money towards a place for them to come to. This is to make a positive, long-lasting impact on the lives of the vulnerable people that are around us and we don't even notice. So Saturday afternoon at 3:30, we're having our run. Please go on there at the United Way's site. Support anybody, including myself, if you can. And if not, and if you can, come out and run with us. It won't take too long. It's just 2 kilometers, unless my wife signed us up for 5, but I'll have that conversation with her later if she did. Anyway, that's my report. Council reports. Any members who sit on a board or a committee, would you like to speak? Anita? And then Rick.
Yes, thank you very much, Reeve Bailey. The Maitland Valley Conservation Authority had their annual general meeting. They had representatives from the provincial government. Warden McNeil was there, and everybody spoke. Everybody was happy. There was a presentation of the inventory of this Maitland Valley services and programs, and a report will come to council. We can go over this and have our input in it from a municipal side of things. So everybody was happy. We received a lot of congratulations for the dedication efforts of the Maitland Valley to keep our residents safe, and help for the managing of the forest and the conservation areas and the floodplains. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve Bailey. In regards to our CHIP meeting, and through the here in Perth Public Health, they're trying to promote a walk to school travel plan to promote walking to school. You know, you see the congestion to the buses and the drop-offs, etc. And how this takes place, they have to walk through the routes to see what is needed. Maybe it's a crosswalk, maybe this is a supervised walkthrough. But anyway, that was their plan to. The schools they were thinking about was maybe Wingham and Clinton, but that's not etched in stone yet. And further on, we're trying to get a safety message out in regards to horse and buggies on the road and the traveling of vehicles along with it. Anyway, the usual stuff. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McBurney. Deputy Reeve Sight.
I just wanted to bring up to council that the Wingham BIA had their annual general meeting. Councillor Heffer and myself were in attendance for that meeting. They brought budget. They're finalizing the one item that they had made sure to make note of in their annual general meeting is that their new LED sign should be available for connection sometime in the late here of February. They were thinking the end of February, but depending on how weather is, I'm sure that will change based on the weather we've seen over the last 2 days. There also has been a couple of new board members or new BIA members voted in. And that report will come from the BIA board executive meeting. It'll come to council for approval at a later date. So the Wingham Community Connectors has also been continuing to meet electronically as well as They met actually in person last month, I believe, and it was to kind of formalize a welcome package for new residents or newcomers to the area. So they are working on getting that package formally completed out. They're going to produce, I believe it's 25 of these packages at the start to see what the interest and the thought process is, and then go from there. But that's and their next goal is to formally work to get a volunteer fair working for North Huron and in the future. So that committee is working and working well together to continue to provide services to the municipality as well.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Not seeing any. We'll move on to comments of members. Comments of members. Not seeing any. We'll move on to notice of motion. Sorry, Chris, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I hope I'm not jumping. I see notice of motion. I know Deputy Reeve Sight asked for one last meeting, but I don't see it written down. So I'm not sure if it's continuing or not.
Deputy Reeve Sight.
So before we get to that, I just want to make one comment under comments by members, Reeve.
Okay.
And then I will answer Councillor Palmer's question. So I did want to, congratulate all agriculture sector in North Huron and for Agricultural Day. That's an important day. Which every day is important when supper time comes around. So I'm pretty excited when I can give a shout out to all the agricultural businesses in the agricultural sector in North Huron, because I think that's in Huron County. I think they do an exceptional job with some of the resources that they're provided, and I appreciate everything that they're doing for our economic development and as well as the economy in whole. So I appreciate what they're doing every day, what they're doing for North Huron. As it relates to Councillor Palmer's question, as it relates to the notice of motion, my notice of motion, I had decided not to put it on based on the news on what is going on as it relates to the easing of restrictions through the vaccination mandates as well as the passport mandates and those types of things. So those things, there looks to be a plan in place that looks like those things are going to be lifted. So that is where my notice of motion was coming from, and that's why I decided to take the notice of motion off for this meeting.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to bylaws. Bylaw number 23-2022, White Church Water Agreement. Do I have a mover? I have
I'll
Paul
move it.
Heffer moving. I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. And I will hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer, Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Announcements. The special council meeting will be held on Thursday, February 24th, 2022 at 6 p.m. through electronic participation. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, March 7th, 2022 at 6 p.m. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, March 17th at 2 p.m. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, March 17th at 6:30 p.m. The next Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, February 24th at 8 a.m. Other business, potential return to in-person meeting. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs the all council committee and board meetings return to an in-person effective March 1st, 2022. Do we want to do comments on and questions, concerns on that first? Then I'll ask for movers. I see no hands going up. I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, no hands going up. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving, Paul Heffer seconding. Okay, Carson, they're hungry for this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Now I have to wear pants. Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. We have no closed session or reporting out tonight. Confirmation bylaw that the bylaw number 24/2022 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron on the February 22nd, 2022 meeting be introduced and read a first, second, third, and final time and signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. Do I have a seconder? Wear yourself out last time. Christopher Palmer seconding. Carson, it's yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
15, which is adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, the meeting hereby adjourns at 8:13 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. Seconder, please. I have Paul Heffer seconding.
So Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer, Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Stay safe, everyone. We'll talk on Thursday. Bye-bye now.